Hello, my loves. In this podcast episode, I'm going to walk you through an assessment of your default stress response. Are you a fighter, a flighter, a freezer, or a fawner? And then, of course, I have some solutions for you. Big, juicy, fuzzy disclaimer. I am not a medical doctor, a naturopath, a psychic healer, nor do I play one on Instagram. Everything we're going to talk about in this edition of With Love, Danielle are general guidelines, most of which have worked for me very personally, and all of which are informed by various types of healers. Most of you know that I've been working very closely with an energy healer for more than 8 years now, and we are co-creating this material together. And much of this work is informed by functional medical doctors, many of whom I will discuss and give reference to in our Nourish System program. So I just have to state the obvious here. I can't take responsibility for interactions with any of the healing practices or substances or medications that you may interpret from this episode. And as importantly, more importantly, everybody's bodies and mental states are unique. We're all just spheres of energy tucked into suitcases we call bodies. So if your personal health situation is really intense right now, I feel for you. There is hope. Please, please seek professional and ongoing medical support. Someone who's going to help you get out of the rut and going to stay with you and get you to the other side of regulation. And in my experience, it takes a village of expertise and perspectives to help us create a healing journey that is specific to us. All right. That's my disclaimer. Now let's get into unmitigated love and hopefully wisdom. I am full of happiness and nervous system regulation to talk to you today about nervous system regulation. This is number 1 in a 3-part series on nourishing your nervous system, because I am launching a whole new program called Nourish System, and I am leading with this really bold statement that if every single person on the planet just focused, it's a big just, focused on regulating their nervous system, it would change the world. If you have a regulated nervous system, you get exactly where you want to go. You get clear on where it is that you want to go. Boom. The solutions get easier to find. You sleep through the night. So many good things. Your relationships come into more harmony. But today, let's start with, here's where I think we're at. I think the past few years on the planet Earth have done a number on our stress levels. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. On our immune systems and on our nervous systems. I think we are still recovering from all of the events that transpired over the last 3.5, now 4 years. It's like just as soon as we get our head above the clouds, another event comes in. That means we've got a lot of us experiencing adrenal fatigue. Our cortisol levels are just jacked. And I kind of laugh when I say that because I remember the time when my cortisol levels were like that of a gorilla. And there was a whole cascade of effects, which I will talk about. I think I'm seeing more people have waves of anxiety and panic attacks that is new to them that I have never seen before. I know a lot of us are having difficulty sleeping. There is a general malaise of despair, and all of this was a precursor to the events of these last few weeks and months of warful uprisings and wars that have been going on for decades, Congo being one of them, that are now reaching this peak of war migration and on and on. Trauma has become a buzzword, and I think it's for good reason. I don't think it's a trend. I think it's an emergent form of awareness. Trauma is affecting all of us on some level, which is to say, we're all a little bit traumatized. Some of us a whole lot traumatized. Nobody is impervious to what's happening globally. We're all tapped into the collective, and that includes the collective shadow and the collective light, the collective consciousness. Just like some of us are attuned to that connection, and some of us, not so much. So whether you're living in a cloister, which I've always had a fantasy about. I remember when I was a little girl watching something like, what was one of those like nightly, newsy kind of entertainment shows? And this journalist and film crew got access to this Benedictine monastery. And they interviewed the head monk. Is that even a term? Like this sir, the chief monk. And they asked him socially relevant, like pop culture questions like, have you ever heard of Rocky? And of course, Rocky Balboa was a cinematic hero of the time. Jaws? No, blank, stare. E.T.? No, nothing. And I thought, oh, I want to be that person someday where I don't know what's going on in society. Anyway, whether you're the cloistered guy or you are hustling in the financial district, it is inevitable. If you are breathing, you are going to be feeling the effects of the massive shifts in our world. And whether you're conscious of it or not, your nervous system is very aware of what's going on. Your nervous system is picking up on everything because that's its job. Essentially, each of us experiences reality, life, through our nervous system. The metaphor that works for me is I think of my nervous system as my own personal internal internet. It's the filter and the messenger of everything that is happening inside of us and around us. Like, I cannot overstate the importance of the nervous system. The nervous system begins in the brain and it carries energy signals throughout the body. It's responsible for all of our senses, sight, smell, hearing, taste, touch, all of it. So that means it's the nervous system that registers our emotions and our thoughts and our feelings. And then it sends that information to all of our cells. The nervous system is responsible for your breathing. I mean, we could argue like it's the greater consciousness that's breathing us, but in the body, it's helping us blink and blush and shiver. It controls our hunger and our thirst. It affects our sleep. It's responsible for our beating heart. So every experience we have in life gets filtered through our nervous system. It's a really big deal. So we want to nourish it. We want to regulate it. We don't want it irregulated, dysregulated, jacked and fried and frazzled. I know you're identifying with a lot of those words. We want calm, steady, pacing, consistent, reliable, heart-centered, really regulated nervous systems. I made a list for you. Don't you love lists? I love lists. 4 planets in Virgo, so gotta love a list. This is an ethos, a belief system that relates to nourishing our nervous system. I have 11 big little nuggets of beliefs and perspectives. Number 1 is that I believe that we are here on this planet to heal. That's why we come. I believe that we heal by remembering our true nature. So healing really is this function of truthful or correct identification. And all suffering comes from misidentification, seeing ourselves as small and separate. We wake up, we remember the who, the what, the where that we are. And the ultimate revelation is we remember that we are divine love. That's the healing. My third premise is that I believe that we are all from one source. We come from the same place, we will return to the same place. We can disagree about what that place is, but we all got to come from the same divine mama, Fourthly, the soul governs our life experience. So our great vastness, this true nature that is unlimited and almost inconceivable in its scope and its radiance, kind of crams itself, a part of itself, a fragment of itself, into these suitcases called human bodies. And we play in this dualistic theater. This is just a dream. We're playing a role. I'm playing a role right now of a soul named Danielle. And then I stick on all of these other personality traits and characteristics, which I can choose to use those traits to eclipse, to blind me from my greater identity, which I will and do on a regular basis. I am a mother. I am an entrepreneur. I am hungry. I am sad. Or I can use those identities as a means to awakening. I can really question each one. What does it mean to be a mother? Am I more than a mother? What does it mean to be an entrepreneur that's aligned with soul? So ultimately, I believe that the soul, also known as the higher self, the essential self, the true nature self, your Buddha nature, your Christ consciousness, is calling all the shots. It's dispensing the suffering, the reward, the illumination. Number 5 in my ethos, I think that the body is a vehicle for awakening. I believe that pain in any form, mental anguish, physical pain, is a cry for love. It's a cry for loving attention. Any form of pain is the unconscious content trying to get our conscious attention. It's trying to become conscious. It's asking for love. Love is the currency. I think all conflict, another form of pain, is a similar call for love, but more specifically, that conflict is a call for unity. War is really just a rageful, agonizing cry for love. I believe that all suffering is an opportunity for expansion. I really think that that is its primary function. We unintentionally create a lot of unnecessary suffering until we wake up to see like, oh, all of that was like so not useful. I so did not need that pain in order to grow. And then there's another degree of suffering that's dispensed from on high, from the soul, to help us unfold, become more realized, more aware of the fact that we're divine love and interconnected. I feel that healing is always possible, that the energetic arc of the universe will always bring us back home. I think that the path to all of this healing and awakening is a heart-centered life, that we refer to the heart first as to what we should think and say and do, and then we use our excellent minds in service to the heart, in service to love. So the best strategy for me is always begin with love and then use the big brain to put it into play. And then finally, I think this is point 11, I think that healing ourselves as individuals is the greatest contribution we can make to the collective. You want to bring peace to the world, it really begins with inside yourself, bringing in all of those fragments, the darkness, the shadow, the critiques, and loving on all of that and getting into a state of loving regulation. We do that for ourselves. We can do it in our kitchens, in our boardrooms, and in our communities, and out it goes. What I want to walk us through today is our before and after, with where we're at with our own dysregulation and where we want to be, what nourished living looks like for us, could look like for us, will become for us. So let me rewind about 5 years ago and give you the, I don't know if I can call them highlights. Let me give you the bullet points of my before story, where my nervous system was ravaged. I didn't even know what nervous system was. I just thought to myself, I'm not a nervous person. Little did I know it was all under the hood, about to burst out all at once and turn into a dark night of the soul. But more specifically, let me talk to you about my body and my mind during that time period. So after many years of overworking in all areas. So when I say overwork, I'm not just talking about doing too many speaking gigs or writing too late into the night and being on Instagram. I mean a sense of pressurized living that was in every area of my life. Overworking in how I took care of my home, overworking in my romantic relationships, overcompensating, over workshopping, over reading, over talking, right? Not to be mistaken with talking over. Overworking just in my way I walked through the world. Am I articulate enough? Am I bold enough? Let me just be more articulate. Let me work harder, more precisely, longer to be the best at articulating what I think humanity needs most right now. And because there is a sense of urgency, I will stay up late to do it. And I will stay up late night after night after night. So you get it. I really think I was born with this sense of pressure within myself. I can see it in myself when I was in grade 2. I can see it in grade 9. I can see it when I got my first job. It is, I don't know if it's a personality trait or if it's an energy I brought in to heal this lifetime that got expressed through personality traits, but I can tell you, I'm been over it. With love, Danielle. But that sense of pressure was a fantastic cocktail base in which got mixed a bad romance, a public cancel culture experience, all of which contributed to a hormonal imbalance that was ramping up. So at this time in my life where my nervous system was really at its most ragged, I did all the tests. My estrogen was tanked, testosterone tanked, all the things you need for vitality and vibrancy and sleeping through the night and burning fat and thinking clearly. It was just not happening. So I was having major brain fog. I couldn't exactly quite put my finger on. It was like that all the time. My brain was always reaching for and sometimes I would find it, and sometimes I would just give up before I could remember your name. I was in a state of dysregulation, which is defined as abnormality or impairment in the regulation of metabolic, physiological, or psychological processes. Anybody relate? This led to anxiety waves and panic attacks. There was a period of time where I was waking up in the mornings with suicidal ideation. I've spoken about this before, where I had many friends who were checking in on me at the time, but one in particular asked me if I had a plan for suicide. And I said, no, not right now, but if I have to go through like 5 more years of this, I think I'm going to have to come up with a plan, because 5 years would have got me to the point where I would have launched my son, and then I could make an exit plan. Now, because I see everything through the lens of soul, or at least I try to consider everything as being a form of energy, even when I was in it, I knew that I was getting my training in light work, that whether I had remembered signing up or not, I was clearly in the PhD program for suffering. And this was going to lead me to being able to help other people flatten their learning curve of suffering, maybe. I mean, there's lots of things we can't avoid, but it was boot camp for becoming a healer. My own personal version of healing, which is podcasting and writing and listening. And you know what? I get really moved right now when I go there, because I think if I can do anything that's useful and helpful right now, it's to listen to people share about their suffering. Yeah. And there's so very much to hear right now. Should we switch gears? Let's take a hard right turn and let's jump to my after. There's a whole middle part there about how I got to this, but let me tell you about life now. I sleep through the night. I have zero anxiety, of course, lots of heartache, but no panic, no waves of anxiety. I feel very much in control of my senses, or maybe control isn't the best word. I feel in control of my faculties. I am the mother of my reality, in so much as I turn a lot of my reality over to the divine and ask for guidance. Clear skin, my gums no longer bleed. There is not a ton of inflammation in my body. It doesn't hurt to move my joints. I'm happy to get up in the morning. And mostly, and by mostly, I mean most pronouncedly, is that even a word? I think every podcast session I invent a word. In the most pronounced way, I have great relationships, intimacy with myself, honesty about my blockages, more tenderness around what I would consider to be human failings and faults, more tenderness with everybody else's faults and failings. And therefore, with that increased tenderness, greater tenderness with the dark stuff, there's more celebration of all the light stuff. I celebrate my genius, my capacity for heart-centered leadership, being a great mom, a really fantastic partner, or so I'm told. The results are good. Get married next year. And there's a calmness, there's an equanimity I have. I am currently more regulated than I am dysregulated. And in the current environment of life on planet Earth, that's called winning. And nervous system regulation is a new kind of success that I'm going to be on my soapbox about for years to come, because all the other stuff we've been chasing, from the political win to the financial win to the material win, is actually creating the dysregulation. Now, we all have a default response to stress. Some of us are fight-flight types. Some of us have a freeze response to stress. Others of us, and I don't think this is discussed enough, are fawners. We have a fawning default response to stress. I'm going to walk you through each of these. You might want to grab a pencil, give yourself a little score about how you're ranking. All of us are going to have responses in all of these categories. Sometimes we're fight and flight, sometimes we're freezers, and sometimes we're kissing ass and we're being fawners. But at the end of the day, we're going to see where we skew to the most often. And it's really useful to get clear on that, because then you know the kind of conditions of healing, the techniques, the methods, the ways that you can heal yourself and get back into regulation. Okay, let's get into fight or flight. Okay, who's my fighters out there? Who wants to get out of Dodge when the going gets tough? The fight-flight state is going to induce feelings of wanting to be more aggressive than usual, aggressive in your speech and your actions. You're going to want to run from what you perceive to be as threats. This is really what jacks up our cortisol levels. So cortisol is the stress hormone. All right, so who relates to this? Nervousness. Nervousness, not to be mistaken with anxiety. Anxiety is this whole other category. Nervousness, anxiety, angst. Anybody angsty? I would describe angst as anxiety combined with a sense of doom and gloom. Restlessness, jittery, can't sit still. It's like this inability to relax, just won't stop doing things, can't fall into ease and to rest. Fight, flight manifests as tension in particular parts of the body. Irritability. This is important. I want to break this down. So, irritability that shows up as being argumentative, you're picking the fight, you're always pushing back. Name calling. Now, I like to think that I'm enlightened enough that I'm not really a name caller, but you know what? I've been thinking a lot about this lately, and I am a subtle, social media triggered name caller. I'm not vitriolic. I don't think vitriolic thoughts. I don't wish death or harm on anybody, but I'll be checking somebody out on the gram and I'll be thinking, what a poser. That's name calling, yeah? I can train myself via my heart out of that behavior. Okay, back to irritability. So we've got argumentativeness, we've got the name calling, and then there's, being verbally abusive. May it not be so, but it happens. Fight, flight response leads to thoughts of an overwhelming nature. And thoughts of an overwhelming nature of this will never end. It's very kind of black or white thinking. It leads to neuroses. You start to overplan, overshop, oversecure, oversafety. You get neurotic, right? A really physical, obvious sign of being in fight-flight mode is shortness of breath. And then also, this works for all genders, bursts of hormones that lead to sweating. This expression of fight or flight is a great one for compassion. It's a great indicator that we're not just all kooky pants and want to bust out or get scrappy all the time, that we have physiological things that are happening that are leading to dysregulation. And this reminds me of one of the wisest things I heard from a shaman stating that until you get the brain in order, brain and the body in order, you cannot work on the spirit. So if the body is in crisis mode with hormonal imbalance, extreme dysregulation, you got to take care of that first before you get your butt to therapy. Essentially, I'm pretty sure that's what the shaman meant. Okay, let me add in a special note here from VS. So for those of you who have been around for a while in my heart-centered membership, hello, I love you. And by the way, I give a class 2 Thursdays a month that is open to the public, and it leads into the membership. So the classes are like $20. You can drop in anytime. Consider it like a yoga drop-in, or you become part of the membership, and all of the classes and the dozens of meditations and mantras and music playlists we have in our community are all free. Okay. I work with an energy healer named VS. We've been together going on 8 years. And here is what she has to say about specifically women and the fight-flight response. This is her quote. Some things I've observed in general in humanity recently, especially for female bodies. The images via news and social media seen are causing a lot of fight, freeze response in most, which leads to big dumps of cortisol in the body. And this is causing more perception of fight and fear to arise, which leads to more activity in the central nervous system through more internal conflict, and then staying in an activated nervous system state instead of a rest and relax mode. Many people are waking up between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. and or several times a night because the excess cortisol is impacting their insulin levels. So, with all of the environmental triggers, it can be really difficult to shut off that fight-flight response. That is really a call to live. And this is another thing. I want to press pause here on the analysis to just say, part of the healing is to look at all of our default responses to stress, whether it's the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, with love and compassion, that really these are gestures, behaviors, reactions that are coming from a place in us that wants to survive. We're doing this because we want to live, we want to continue. It's just that too much of this coming from our unhealed content is toxic. My loves, I have something time sensitive to tell you. Next week, on Tuesday, November 14th, at 3 Pacific, that's 6 Eastern, I'm going to do a free class called From Friction to Freedom. It's going to be massively helpful. The concentration is on looking at how your nervous system is affecting your relationship. And by the way, it's affecting your relationships a lot. And of course, I'm going to have some practices for getting back to balance and connection with yourself and your people. And since this is the first time that I've created this kind of offering, I have something that's also time sensitive for you. Little gift when you join me live. If you're live, then I can get to your nervous system just a little bit more and help you move into some regulation, ideally. Or just come for the hour and catch the replay. I'll take you however I can get you. You RSVP, it's free. Tuesday, November 14th, daniellelaporte.com/freedom. All right, let's shift gears and move into the freeze, also known as the shutdown state. So where are my freezers at? I'm a freezer, raising my hand, so know lots about this. Feelings of helplessness? Anybody? This is a big one. Shut down, numbed, or spaced out. Who shuts down? Who just you just cinch that lock, yeah? Don't want to talk about it, not going there. Not much to say anymore. Let everybody else just figure it out on their own. And the spaced out factor with this is a tricky one to talk to people about because you get the kind of gossamer, fairy type, or the dude who's not quite present. And we want to be quick to judge that, to say hey, get back here, get grounded. And we can lack some compassion because often the spaced out response is a stressed response. It's not that they don't want to be with you. It's not that they're dumb. It's a checkout from the stress. Okay, another way we freeze is we just lack motivation. Very specifically, a lack of wanting movement for the physical body. Just the idea of it, I just want to be comfortable. Don't touch me. I'm just going to stay here bundled. Isolation. We create isolation in our lives. Next on the list is perceived. This is an important word in this concept. Perceived sense of disconnection. We aren't necessarily disconnected. In fact, we're always eternally one. But the ego mind in stress will have us see ourselves as separate from God, source itself, family, friends, loved ones, all of our support systems. We start to tell ourselves stories like, born into the wrong house, stork dropped me off on the wrong street. I should have been born 2 blocks away to those hippies. Nobody understands me. It's been so long since we talked. I don't want to bother them with my story. Different politics, just different, Also, a perceived sense of disconnection from the things that used to bring us pleasure. Okay, so everybody let's hit pause now on the stress list for a second. Everybody, just take a deep breath in. Exhale. And think about the things that you really love but you don't do anymore. Or that you used to really love and you don't know why you don't do them anymore. Walks, being in nature, sexy time, movies, dancing, going to art galleries, cafe time, just walking around the neighborhood, skiing, swimming, all the things, right? And are you doing them now? And what's the story you tell yourself about why you don't do those things? Maybe you blew out your knee and skiing is not going to be your thing anymore. But what's stopping us from hugging some trees, catching a flick with some friends, going to the pub again, dancing in our kitchens, Yeah. Okay. Another point on the stress list for the freezers, for the shutdowners, is repeated thoughts that go in a loop. It's like we just clench on to a narrative. I laugh when I say that because I think narrative is one of the most overused words of the last 3 years. Narrative, nuance. Now adjacent is becoming the new nuance as a overused word. Anyway, I digress. Withdrawing from day-to-day activities. This is part of how the freeze default response moves itself into isolation. And then we have an unwillingness to ask for support. We actually can get ourselves into this incapacitated state where we will just not ask for help. And then we have, this is the last on this downer list of the freeze response. Actually, I hope it's not a downer. I love knowing where the weeds are in the system. I find knowing these things revelatory and exciting and a relief. And I hope you do too. Welcome to With Love, Danielle, the podcast. Okay. Avoidance and fear of potentially trigger-filled situations. So let me give you an example. Years ago, you caught a flight during the Christmas holidays and it was super duper stressful because, Christmas, Hanukkah, crazy time. And you vowed to never fly during the month of December or January ever again, ever. Yet you're just avoiding the trigger-filled situation. You don't want to go to the party again because you don't want to be rejected. You don't want to go for the job, on and on. So that's a freeze response. Let's take a turn and talk about the fawning response, which I am really excited to discuss, even though this is a one-way conversation at the moment. It doesn't have to be one way. You know what? I post onto my Instagram feed and Facebook every podcast episode, and I love to read the comments about your revelations and your thoughts. So go and let me know the ahas and the struggles and why you love what you love. And by the way, since I'm asking for 4 stars in various forms, it really does help a podcast if you go leave a review, by the way, because it's our way of enlightening the algorithm and more people get positive, not doomy, gloomy content. You leaving a positive review helps me support people to regulate their nervous system. How's that? Okay. The fawn response. Fawning is like a character adaptation. It's about feeling like it's safer to please other people and be the person they think they need you to be than it is to just be yourself. We feel a danger, a threat to be authentically us. It's a trauma response. It can be activated by just day-to-day stressors or ongoing chronic stress. So this is what it looks like. People pleasing. Everybody's done that on some level, but some of us got the disease to please. It's ongoing. A real difficulty saying no. Not just like you deliberate because you're a conscious, loving person, but like you actually have a hard time saying, I can't, I won't, no thank you. An incapacity to create healthy lines of demarcation. Healthy lines of demarcation. You notice I'm not using the word boundaries because I think boundaries are getting really maligned. If you want good boundary work, go check out what Terry Cole is up to. But I think boundaries in the wellness space are getting misused to create barriers. I could go on about that for days. Fawning response is the tendency to avoid conflict. A fawner will assume responsibility for other people's emotions, other people's states of mind. Oh, you're angry? I'm sorry I made you angry. Or you're sad? How am I making you sad? No, listen. Someone's anger, sadness is their own. Your presence may be contributing to it, but everybody's choosing to feel how they feel. Okay. Over apologizing. No need to say sorry 3 times. If you just are really in your heart, that apology is like fully in your body and you give it all you got. You're looking someone in the eye, you're naming what you did, and you are making a declaration that you will do all you can for it to never happen again, and you want to heal the situation. That's all you got to say. And you only need to say it once. Fawners have a hard time verbalizing what they need and what they want. Yeah. They're afraid of being ridiculed. So they don't want to share their opinions. Very quiet. Fawners are quiet in the team call. They don't want to express themselves out of a fear of being mocked and looked down upon. And then here's a really tender characteristic or reasoning for fawning, which is chronic pain and illness. So this is what I think happens. I think for those of us who deal with chronic pain or an ongoing illness, living with something that kind of extreme or mild agony, if there is such a thing as mild agony, on a day-to-day basis, I think what we do is we project our desire for tenderness and sympathy onto other people. So we overcompensate and give everybody a lot of tenderness and a lot of sympathy, and we're fawning and we're sweet and we're saccharine and we're gentle because we're so deeply, understandably craving gentleness and tenderness from the outside world because we're in chronic pain. So again, just a reminder for all of these responses to stress. This is the body's way of surviving. This is the ego's way of trying to thrive. This is our unhealed self in an unhealthy way, trying to get healthy. This is because we want to live, but there's a better way to go about it. Let me walk you through some of the conditions of healing, some techniques and methodologies, just a handful for all of us, and then specifically for the fighters and the flighters and the freezers, and a little bit for the fawners. My Nourish System program is an 8-week kind of protocol where I'm going to hold your hand and we're going to look at all of these responses and the effects of the nervous system on our relationships, on our work in the world, on our bodies, on how we perceive the future, on our relationship with the divine. And then we build an actual Nourish system for ourselves that we can carry on for years. And in the program itself, I'm actually going to stay in touch with you for a year. I'm going to check in with you every month to see how it's going. Because if everybody just focused on this kind of loving kindness and regulation, we would have the transformation that our hearts have been craving for, I think, centuries. Okay. Techniques, small healing moves for all of us, no matter what your default response is to stress. Being outside, being outside, being outside. Nature is the greatest healer. Here's what I've got to say with specificity about nature. I learned this in the most moving way in a workshop, a teaching I was doing with an indigenous community in Taos, New Mexico, where every time we did a ritual where we turned to the earth, first we gave our gratitude to the Divine Mother. So if you're going to go outside and hug a tree to get that Shakti energy, to really charge into the battery pack that is the mother, first you say thank you. And then you take what you need. If you are going to take your shoes off, it's so silly that it's called earthing. Earthing is just walking on the ground in bare feet, like we have been doing for thousands of years, but we forget to do it all the time now. Think of the body of Gaia, of Mother Earth, as this radiant, eternal, ever-generative, pulsing battery pack of life force and prana. You want to get close to that as possible. Maybe we just all like dig holes and sleep in them for the night, but Feet to ground, asking with intention to receive that prana through the soles of your feet. Energized. Just get outside. As Zach Bush would say, breathe your biome. Okay, really simple for all of us. Gargling with warm water and sea salt. Gargling with warm water and sea salt. Why? Because it activates the vagus nerve. I'm going to tell you more about the vagus nerve in the nervous system course. Dancing. Of course, like nobody's watching. It's probably better if they're not. Dancing is another form of nourishment to the vagus nerve. Helps us shake off residual energy, gets us in touch with the sexy. We do the offering up, all the things. Dancing is particularly great for those of us that have a freeze response because we need to be doing the opposite of our stress response. So the opposite of frozen is hot, is heat, is moving, is shaking it off, right? And plants for all of us. And I look at essential oils as plant medicine. I know lots of us regard cannabis and ayahuasca as plant medicines, as they are, but I think essential oils get underrated. So the basic pointers with essential oils is, one, you want to look for non-synthetic oils. So look, stuff you can get in the grocery store is not going to be therapeutic grade. It just isn't. So the most popular oils out there, and many of these are MLM systems, but whatever, it's the good stuff. Young Living, that's my choice. I also work with Living Libations oils. Love all things Living Libations. And I know there's thousands of people who are into doTERRA. There's also Floracopia. Okay, so you go with the brand that you resonate with the most. The technique is to put 1 or 2 drops on the base of your skull. That's your amygdala area. So base of the back of the skull. Just a few times a day or when you're meditating. That area is what controls fear. So we're actually helping we're signaling and taking a medicinal approach, you could say, to calming the fear down. And here's the last tip, which is, if you're called to, do this in a prayerful way. Like every time I apply an essential oil on my body, or I put it under my tongue, or I put it into my bath, I give thanks. Yeah? All right, let's talk about remedies for the fighters and the flighters. Raise your hand. Okay, a little bit of tough love here. Caffeine, chocolate, it's not doing you any favors. We want to calm your nervous system. Caffeine just jacks it. So consider maybe decaffeinated tea. Yeah. For the fighter flighters, you want to be focusing on getting your serotonin flowing. So serotonin governs our moods, helps us get into calmness, contentment, tranquility, great for sleep, right? So contributors to that: fun, sunshine, gut health, which is all about the prebiotics and the probiotics, tactile experiences, playing with your dogs, good friendships, being in safe groups. Emphasis on safe groups, places where you feel seen and heard and accepted and loved. You go where the love is. That's the hack, the so-called hack for all stress responses. Go where the love is. No need to convert, to cajole, or to perform to be so-called love. You go where you're seen and heard. You go where you're celebrated. Somebody in my membership recently said, she couldn't remember where it was from, but go where you are celebrated, not tolerated. Yeah, love it. Gratitude journaling. This is all science-backed, by the way. Gratitude, when you think it through, gets the serotonin flowing. And service. And these are the kind of things you're not going to hear in the medical journals, or even with Hadi Huberman, who I'm like totally into, such a hunk. But helping others wholeheartedly gets the serotonin flowing. Love begets more love. And that is a great nervous system regulator. And then finally, rituals that help you to get calm and get centered. If you want overt rituals, I've got lots of stuff at daniellelaporte.com/ shop. I have prayers. I have meditations. I have a whole prayer series for free on my Instagram channel. So, okay, let's talk about the freezers. Guess what? We get to have some caffeine and some chocolate. That's the good news, because I got some not so good news for you. You got to move. So cold water is great for those of us who default to the freeze response. We don't all have to get Wim Hof, although it would be helpful. Here's a way to ease into it. You take your hot shower, you get what you need, you get your cozy on and your squishy on and your soapy on, okay. And then can you give yourself a blast of cold? If you can't even, if just the thought makes you want to tell me to piss off, then you do this. Turn the shower off, turn the bathtub tap on, and just get some cold water on your feet. And then the next day, do the same thing. And then splash some cold water on your face. And then the next day, add some cold to your front chest. And the next day, splash on your back. And you'll see what happens. You actually build up a tolerance, okay? So the antidote to freeze response, rigorous movement. So you want to get the prana moving, right? You can shake. You can do side-to-side twists, jumping jacks. Make sure you're on a safe surface to do that so you're not doing the splits on your hardwood floor. Cardio, running, but you do it with a pace. So you can run hard and then walk slow. So what we're looking for with the freeze response is healthy sources of dopamine. Dopamine is about pleasure. It's about movement, attention, focus, motivation, reward. Now, dopamine mining is particularly dangerous with the freeze people and social media, because every time we hit that little heart, or we get a like, or we see something sweet and pleasurable in our Instagram feed, we get a little dopamine hit. And that's an unhealthy source of dopamine, because too much of it toxifies and we don't move. We got to be moving. So lifting weights, even just smaller weight range, works wonders. Again, the dancing, moving away from all of our screens, just less screen time. And then aiming for new experiences. So the opposite of stuck is fresh, is new, is alive. So new movies, conversations about new topics, new groups, different places to travel. Fresh, new, unexplored, sparkly. All right, let me talk to the fawners. I need to give us a little more shade on the fawning, first of all, before I give us the curatives. My experience of the fawning type of behavior, really that kind of ass kissing, for, just to put it in Canuck speak. That's what my dad would say. She's such an ass kisser. It's really corrosive with trust, because eventually people are going to sense that it's not coming from a genuine place. More aware people will know that it's coming from a wounded place, and they're going to have some compassion for you, but not everybody will. And it actually slows down the process, the forward motion, because it's got that heavy kind of syrupy, saccharine energy to it. We're taking time out to fawn instead of be truthful. And the result is it often backfires, and you don't get the love that you really deserve to get. So the fawning craving is really about oxytocin. Oxytocin is that feeling of bonding. This is what we get when we're in labor, when they put the baby on our chest. This is the trust, the love, the empathy. This is the connection chemical from all forms of healthy connection, right? So how do we generate that? So all the fawners listening, or anybody who's maybe not an over fawner, but you can see yourself doing it at a particular time in your life or with particular people, right? Okay. Gratitude, appreciation, thank you journaling, all of that gets the oxytocin flowing. Being vulnerable and safety, that is that warm, fuzzy feeling. Hugs, tactile, cuddling, safe touch, laughter with friends. Nurturing yourself, random acts of kindness. You direct that love outward, it comes back to you like it's an infinity loop. And then this one is really key. Listening openly to others. And by openly, I mean listening without judgment to others. Because when you can soften your mind, it's not about softening your heart. Your heart is always vast and gentle and open. It's about getting the rigidity of the mind dialed down, the aperture more open. When we can listen more openly without judgment to other people, we will be so much more gentle and tender and friendly with our own inner critic. And then that inner critic starts to calm down. And then you know what happens? You stop kissing everybody's ass. Okay, and then here's one more really beautiful oxytocin, cure the fawning tip. Collaborate with like-minded people. This goes back to the point that's great for all of us. Go where the love is. Go where you feel resonance and harmony. There's still so much room for diversity and inclusiveness, but you're going where you vibrate. All right, now let's talk about your before and after for our great finale. I have some questions for you, and I'm actually going to turn these into a love note. You know, you can go to daniellelaporte.com/love note, and almost every podcast episode, I put in a little prayer or a checklist or a cosmic cheat sheet for you that you can download, look at, create a screensaver of. It's all there for you free. Okay, all right, so let me walk you through this very simple before and after exercise. Big, simple, gnarly question. In your life, what is currently not working? Anything that comes to mind. What's not working? What's not optimal? What is stagnant? What is stuck? What is inflamed? A few other words to get you into this dark space. Pain points, disappointment, heartache. Okay, how's your body feel? Where does your body not feel great? What part of your body really, literally is just like not working? All right. We're still staying in current. Now, because we don't want to stay in the depths, we want to pull this energy up. What is working? What really feels optimal in every area of your life? In your wellness regime, in your relationships, in your work in the world, financially, creatively? What feels like it's free? It's vibrant, it's vivacious, it's fulfilling, you cherish it. Yeah, okay, so move back into the positive, move into celebration mode. So with what's not working and then what's working, you should have a pretty good picture about your current life. So that's present. Someday your present is going to become your before. So what's your after going to look like? Another way of saying that, you don't have to follow the trail of that. Where do you want to be a year from now? How do you want to show up at work, at home, and everywhere in between? And this question is really about what will it look like and feel like and sound like, be like, for you to have a nourished nervous system, for you to be regulated, heart-centered, vibrant, less stressed, more available. For you to move into the state of the Meta-Bhavana prayer, which we'll close with. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be free of suffering. May you be free of mental anxiety. May you live in peace. And may your life be blessed with ease. I am cheering on your before and your after and your now. For those of you who have been with me for a while, you'll understand me when I say the Nourish system is the new desire map. And I am just full of gratitude and anticipation and sweetness to get this kind of content out in the world so that we can be regulated, centered, and loving in all areas of our life forevermore. That sounded a little cheesy. It was so sincere. Normally, if I got too cheesy, I would ask our producer to cut that out. I would say, Kelly, could you just cut the cheese? But that doesn't sound good either. Okay, I am becoming dysregulated now. I am just going to leave you with all this love, always with love, Danielle. Thank you so much for listening, for feeling, for spreading the word. With love.